Some data matters more than infrastructure. Welcome everyone to today's Explainer. I am really glad you're joining us for this one, because today we're diving into a critical paradigm shift in operational resilience. We're going to challenge some deeply rooted assumptions about what really keeps a business running, and honestly, why our standard, everyday approaches might be leaving us incredibly vulnerable. Let's get right into it.
So here is the hard truth. When organizations think about resilience, they often look in the exact wrong place. I know that sounds bold, but stick with me here. Most of the time, we default to focusing all our resilience efforts on visible, tangible IT assets. We build these massive, complex digital moats around our technology, but while we're doing that, we totally forget to look at the actual lifeblood of the business. We end up obsessing over the container rather than protecting what it actually contains.
It's genuinely fascinating to look at what we naturally gravitate toward protecting. It's almost always the visible elements of infrastructure, right? We're talking about servers, networks, applications, and backups. These are highly tangible assets. They sit humming in data centers, or they live in clearly defined cloud environments. And because they're relatively easy to inventory and track, they create this massive false sense of security. Basically, because we can count them and we can patch them, we feel like we can protect them.
But let's run through a deliberate thought experiment just to see why that's a dangerous trap. Consider two different scenarios. In scenario A, you lose the server. Sure, it's inconvenient, it might even feel like a crisis in the heat of the moment, but ultimately, it's replaceable and it's restorable. Now look at scenario B, where you lose proof of validation. In this scenario, your infrastructure is perfectly fine, the servers are humming along, but you cannot demonstrate that a critical safety control was completed, or you literally cannot justify a massive financial decision.
So, the absolutely crucial question becomes, which of these two situations represents the greater risk to your organization? It is really worth pausing on this for a second, because it completely shatters that long-held assumption that infrastructure is our primary critical asset. Losing a piece of hardware is a headache, for sure, but losing the concrete proof of your operational integrity, that can be a catastrophic, completely unrecoverable event for a business.
And that brings us to a counterintuitive but absolutely vital core concept. Infrastructure does not create value. I know that might sting a little, especially for the tech leaders tuning in right now, but it's a vital distinction we have to make. Your infrastructure and your applications are absolutely necessary to operate, but they are not the actual source of organizational value. They're just the tools we use to facilitate it. True value only appears when an organization successfully transforms specific business objects. What exactly are those objects? Well, it's things like an order, a contract, a customer file, an invoice, a patient record, or a production order. Value creation happens through the successful transformation of these specific objects from one state to another. And to make that transformation happen, you need indispensable data.
But here is the massive catch that so many resilience plans completely miss. Not all data has the same value. While some information can be reconstructed relatively easily, maybe recreated from scratch, or just replaced if it gets lost, other pieces of data are absolutely irreplaceable. If you lose them, you aren't just losing a few bytes of storage space, you are losing the fundamental reality of your business operations.
This brings us to a really foundational definition within the Ransom-Kick Resilience Model. We call these irreplaceable pieces of data points of truth. This is the specific data that explicitly tells us what is true. This concept elevates data from just being basic storage to being the ultimate proof of action and quality control. It's what allows us to conclusively demonstrate that a decision was made, a payment was approved, or a strict regulatory obligation was officially fulfilled.
You see, a point of truth is so much more than just data. It represents a core operational capability. It is the ability to demonstrate, it's the ability to decide, the ability to justify, and ultimately it's the sheer ability to continue operating. Losing a point of truth means the organization literally loses its actual capability to act. And I think that proves exactly why this data matters significantly more than the physical infrastructure that's hosting it. We actually see this counterintuitive reality play out during major, real-world disruptions all the time. Think about it. The infrastructure returns, the applications restart, all the lights on the servers in the rack are glowing green, but operations remain completely halted. Why? Because teams are scrambling, continuing to search for that critical, irreplaceable information. True operations simply cannot resume until those points of truth are found and validated.
Because of this reality, we need to completely shift the primary question we ask about resilience. The question is no longer just which systems should we restore. The actual critical question becomes, Which data must we preserve to continue creating value? This is the exact lens through which every single decision maker needs to view operational resilience going forward.
And this perfectly illustrates the mandatory ransom-kick strategic progression that organizations need to follow. It all starts with value creation, moving into basic continuity, and then to reconstruction. From there, we secure the capability for decision-making, then demonstration, moving right along to certification, and ultimately leading the organization all the way to true anti-fragility. Remember, real resilience is the capacity to preserve, reconstruct, and actively improve this exact progression of capabilities despite any disruptions that get thrown your way.
So, just to summarize this ultimate paradigm shift required for genuine operational resilience, we have to deliberately move decision makers away from a purely technology-centric mindset and firmly anchor them into a value creation mindset. You are not just protecting IT assets anymore, you are protecting your organization's fundamental capacity to create and validate value.
Now, to help you actually implement this value creation mindset and to continue your strategic reflection with your teams, here are the mandatory resources you absolutely need to explore. The book series, Assuring Resilience, the YouTube channel, Archeon Group, the French podcast, Conversations Resilience Ransom-Kick, the English podcast, Ransom-Kick Resilience Talks, and the websites www.ransomkick.com and www.archeonis.app.
And finally, all of this groundbreaking work and methodology comes directly from Fabian Palazoides, founder of Ransom-Kick, designer of the Ransom-Kick Resilience Model, and author of the Assuring Resilience book series. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to take back to your teams. Are you ready to stop blindly protecting your servers and start protecting the data that actually proves your organization's worth? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.